I mean, he made a very positive impression on us, and I think we're hoping him to get that he's back on a mound shortly. So hopefully we're having to make another decision, because he's ready to go pretty quickly.
Shortly, within a couple of weeks. Though.
Yeah, within a couple of weeks.
Like,
no, I mean, I think we're looking at I think 2 to 4 weeks before he's back on a mound. Yeah.
And is your understanding then? I mean, our understanding is sort of like get him healthy, get him in a couple of games, and then sort of if you don't.
Yeah, I mean, we got to get him.
He's going to have a chance to opt out again.
For sure. Yeah.
And that's just kind of a gentleman's agreement. It sounds like, right?
Yeah, I think that's how it works. Yeah.
The three guys, Suter, Guerra, Woodruff, are they kind of on equal footing for you this spring? Those three guys, have they all made impressions, or any one?
Well, I think, I think it's important to know where we started camp, and that was with, and I think I was pretty clear with this. Suter started with a leg up in this, because of, how he's pitched. He's pitched very well, in the big leagues for a little over a year in our eyes. So he started with a leg up in this thing. And I think that doesn't change.
Do you mean that for the rotation or just somewhere on your team?
I mean that on the team, yeah. Yeah.
That's what we've been trying to figure out is how it lines up, like where are you. And I understand he's going to do both probably this season. Don't you think?
There's a good chance that he has the ability to do it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of where I get into the outgetter phrase, because we get so stuck on saying he has to be this or this, and we don't have. He just has to get outs for us.
Yeah,
that's what the pitcher's jobs are. So that's kind of, he is really the reason why you have this term, and I see you guys use it, but it's because of his job. I mean, Brent's good at just getting hitters out. So whether he does it first or second, and you want to call him a different name, I think it's kind of silly.
He's different though in that respect, isn't he? I mean, there's not a lot of guys that have that kind of flexibility and that versatility, or that aren't utilized in that way.
I mean, there's not guys that are the difference between throwing. There's a difference between throwing like 100 pitches and 20 pitches. There's a difference, and really the important thing is that guys can train for that. But the most important thing is that you get hitters out. Mm-hmm. Like that's far more important than am I a starter or reliever? It's like, can you get hitters out?
Yeah. What about the left-handers then, Craig? Is that how do you weigh the advantage of having a lefty in the rotation versus a second lefty in the both?
Yeah, I mean what I'd say is that I don't see Brent as I see him as a fairly neutral pitcher. That's why he still has the ability to start, is because when you're a starter, the other team gets to pick the hitters that you hit against, that you face. When you're a reliever, I get to pick who the hitters that the reliever faces, kind of. So I think I don't really think. I don't consider Brent like a lefty specialist. I don't think he'll ever be that. So I don't think the fact that he throws left-handed doesn't really, to me, influence bullpen rotation at all.
So maybe that makes him more valuable as a starter then, huh? If he doesn't really...
That's not a factor in the decision with him. If that's your question. Yeah.
Do you think you'll be able to keep Aguilar, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly there's rosters that we can for sure, and I think it his number depends on the number of pitchers. I mean, his status depends on the number of pitchers. Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot to weigh there, isn't it? I mean, you want to have enough pitchers, but
yeah,
it's not going to be easy to sneak a guy like him through the waivers, isn't it?
Yeah, I know the waivers is not mine, but it's.
The American League teams.
It's an active player time, so there's, I think sometimes you always get surprised at some of the names out there. So.
Yeah.
I don't try to figure those out.
He's been a pretty good contributor to you, though.
No, Jesus had a very good rookie season. He was an impactful player for us. He's done good in the spring. We're at the point where we got to get to 25 in a couple days here. And I think we're trying to figure out a way to make that happen. We're trying to figure out a way to get him on the roster. Yeah, that's certainly that's the right thing to say. We're trying to figure out ways to get him on the roster.
Craig, if Ryan plays a lot of first base against the lefties, what is that? You said you're looking for ways to get Aguilar on the roster.
Yeah.
Where does that leave him?
Well, there's no look. This is where we started at spring training. We don't. There's if you want to play, we don't have room to play everybody.
Right.
There will be injuries during the season. There will be guys that can't play during times. That's why we're having this conversation, because there isn't a clear spot for Jesus, really, if Ryan plays first base. So, but could there be quickly? I don't know what's going to happen quickly. I don't know what's going to happen relatively soon.
What I was wondering is if that affects your decision making in him versus a pitcher. Like if he's not going to play, if it's a spot on the bench that he's going to get a few pinch hits here and there, how do you weigh that against an extra arm that might really be valuable in your play?
Well, but it'd be an arm. It'd be the theoretically it'd be the arm that you'd least likely use too.
That's true.
So and then it's just. And it might be an arm that you can option to the minor leagues, and then this player that you don't want to lose, and you can keep him.
That's just going to stay a moving part, isn't it?
It's we've got to make some decisions on our depth coming up here, but we're still going to try to preserve it because it protects you in the case of something bad happening. Yeah.
That'll never end, will it?
I don't think I think for us we have to it's one of the things that we have to be good at doing. I think that's one of the ways we hopefully can maybe gain a little bit of advantage.
Yeah. Served you well in the last year or so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm happy with how it's gone. Yeah, I am. I think again, you're not going to transform a player into, an experienced player and a completely comfortable player in 5 games worth of action. But, he's handled himself very well from our perspective.
So that's a go for the season.
That's a go.
Sounds like, yeah.
That's a go.
You know how much he'll play there? You have a sense of that, or is it like a catching thing, just...
I think you'll see him there against left-handed pitching quite a bit.
So he's probably your opening day first base.
Yeah. That's
good.
Investigative journalism.
Hey.
I mean, how you connected the steps there from A to B to C.
I mean, I didn't win all these awards.
I know. I'm proud of you.
I mean, you came into it expecting him to do well anyway, right? I mean, for the most part, he's a good athlete. I mean, he has good aptitude, and you had pretty good sense that he was able to do this successfully, right?
I did, and I think, I think he has the skills to play the position. I think the part that. And like I said before, I understand why he's uncomfortable with the rest of the stuff, because you're not going to be comfortable with it until you've done it a whole bunch, and he hasn't done some of it. There's still plays that haven't happened and the way he thinks about the game, that makes him uncomfortable, and that's right. I can completely empathize with that. So it makes sense, but I think he's shown enough that we think he can be a contributor there.
Is the biggest thing, like, bunt coverages? Is it cutoffs? Is it all that holding guys on? Are those the biggest challenges?
I mean, the challenges are the plays that don't happen that much that impact you. So the funny plays are the plays that are the challenge because, it's the little dribbler up the first base line that the runner's coming at you and the pitcher throws and you can't see the ball. It's the how comfortable do I feel playing? How far can I get away from first base with a right-handed hitter up? It's a push run from a fast runner. So it's the kind of the plays that it's not the ground balls, it's not the throws from the infielders. It's the stuff that you try to practice, but it doesn't happen that much. So it's still a surprise when it happens. When we practiced it with them kind of on a backfield and said this could happen. But if it doesn't happen, it's better if it happens in a game.
What he said was interesting, too, is once you know you're going to do it, you sort of watch that position a little differently, a little more closely.
Yeah.
And there's probably learning that's happening just from sort of
I think
observing.
Yeah, I mean, there's I think that's right. It's for sure. It's you want to see those plays happen. You want to see how did the first baseman react and why did he do that, and so we'll get there. And the more he plays there, the more comfortable he'll feel.
Hey, you've talked a little bit about Cain and Yelich, what they bring in terms of bringing the strikeout number down a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you think it can have an effect on the rest of the hitters in the lineup also, or is that overstating it?
Well, I mean, I think it can have a little bit of effect. I mean, I think I would argue that a lot of these guys are younger players, so it's another year in the league. They just put under 600 at bat. Travis Shaw, Domingo, they just put 600 at bats under their belt. Hopefully, they kind of keep progressing a little bit because of that. Look, you watch your teammates. These guys watch their teammates and how they do take their bats. They pick their brains on kind of the best of practice from each other. So, they can't. Everybody would kind of want to pick the best of each skill that our guys have, and they try to, but it's still something that's a skill that each guy has. So, if other guys' numbers go down, I would account it more towards them being a year older and a year more experienced and just kind of growth as hitters themselves.